Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Because it's an election season, an election year, we decided to talk about Reagan. We've talked about him twice before.
This is part 3.
This is part 3, and today in the past, we focused on his handling of the AIDS crisis. Wasn't great. And we talked about, in an episode previous to that, we talked about how he handled the mental health crisis. He wasn't great. And today we're talking about his economical policies, economics, the voodoo economics and all that crap.
Yep.
This is so exhausting.
Guess what? He didn't handle that well either.
No. But before we get to that, we got stuff we have to talk about first. We are always looking for ideas for creeps and for non-creeps. And if this is your first time listening, we always end the show with somebody who is not a creep. So you leave feeling a little more elated about the world than when you started. Not DNC convention elated. I don't know if we could ever manage that, but pretty close, I would say. You'd like waiting in line to get in kind of thing.
Yeah.
You could find us on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page, but that's where people go to complain about our language. This is your big warning. We use salty languages in this program, and I have a feeling we'll use it a lot today.
Fuck yeah.
We're much more interactive in our private Facebook group, so you have to type in. You don't have to, but if you'd like to join, you go to Facebook.
If you want to join.
This is not compulsory. You can do whatever you want with your lives.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go on social media if you don't want to. But if you do, and you go to Facebook, type in What a Creep podcast group. You have to answer a few questions. Give it your best shot. We just don't be an asshole. That's all we're asking.
Yes. But shouldn't be too much to ask, but you'd be surprised.
You'd be shocked, y'all. We're on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for over 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
And we're on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky at What a Creep Podcast. And we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, we had a couple of sticker requests, Sonia. And
oh, nice.
Different parts of the globe. I'm really hoping for somebody from South Africa.
Come on, do it.
Do it. We talked about Sun City last week. But if you would like that, please send us your address via email. Wherever you are on the planet of Earth, I will send them out to you. I will get them to you.
She will do it.
I will do it. Just dare me. Sonia, you want to tell them about the website?
Yeah, go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you want to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. There are links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those posts are show notes, because we source everything we do. We have all these sources. So if you're like, I want to do a deeper dive on Reagan, even though they've talked about him 3 times now, you should look at the show notes. That's a great place to start. So do that. We also have a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and face masks because COVID is still around, y'all.
I got a t-shirt, Sonia.
Did you?
I did. I got a t-shirt that says the high road can get fucked, and it's perfect. I got a big size, and I cut the neck out, so it's like nice. Super cozy sleep shirt.
I did the same thing.
Stop.
Mine is also my sleep shirt, and they're so soft. They're
so comfy and just cute, and it fits really nicely.
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious. The high road can get fucked, petty next exit, and it's always appropriate, but it seems particularly appropriate this election year. But there's also a link to our Patreon. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We have our first 9 seasons on the Patreon wall. 9 times. So
I don't remember him being sick 9 times. That's from Ferris Bueller.
Oh my God. That's a pull. So up there we have Oprah Creeps, Charlie Chaplin, Coco Chanel, Joel Osteen, Peter Sellers, Picasso, and Alex Jones. all on our Patreon wall.
Epic creeps.
And it helps us with the costs for the show. We pay for all of our sources. That's what Sonia mentioned before. So that really helps with that and just the cost for putting the show together. And occasionally I get a nice smoothie with the money, just to be honest with you. So all of you that support us there, thank you. Also, you can always sign up for free. And we do post clips there from stuff that we talk about in the episode. If we have any video clips we think would be helpful. We do post them in Facebook. We try to post it on TikTok. Sometimes they don't let us. So that's why I also post them there. So just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody that supports us there on Patreon. And another way you could support us is please just leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. You know, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Spotify, Good Pods. We always do well on Good Pods. And of course, Apple Podcasts. Still, I think it's about 50% of our downloads. It went down. The Apple wasn't working a couple of weeks ago because Mercury was in retrograde. But we got it all fixed now. It's working. It's awesome. And there's new things happening at Patreon that they're making the experience even more interactive and more fun. So go check it out, y'all.
Yeah, we're posting 2 bonus episodes a month there. And we are recording it video style. So if you want to watch instead of listen, you can do that. You want to see what we look like? You could do that.
And we talk about more, I mean, it's sort of like we shoot the shit, we call it, but we're just talking about topics that are happening in the news. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
Donald Trump in Arlington. All the different things that
Below
are happening.
Deck Med.
Below Deck Med is my obsession. Did you watch it last night?
No, I'm going to watch it tonight.
Okay. We'll talk about it then for Dorking Out.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Dorking Out in a little bit.
Yes.
All right, y'all. I think we've been through everything.
Yeah.
We've done the rigmarole. Sonia.
Yeah.
Also, if this is your first time, we do take turns. So this week, Sonia leads.
Yes.
And I think we know who we're talking about, but why don't you just give us your intro?
I don't know why I'm just obsessed with Reagan. And before we started recording, I was singing and I was like, I'm just wild about Reagan. And he's just wild about tax cuts. So we are doing our part 3 on Reagan. Again, I put links in the show notes to our earlier episodes. Part 1 was Reagan and his mental health policies, and part 2 was Reagan and his response and lack thereof to the AIDS crisis. Sources for this episode. I'm sorry, we're going to talk about trickle-down economics and welfare queens is what I've titled this one. Sources for this episode: CBS, Georgetown Law. That's right, Georgetown Law. New America, New York Times, PBS, the Roosevelt Institute, because economics is so interesting, y'all. Washington Post, and a lot of Wikipedia. There's like the Wikipedia link for Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, and just welfare queens. So again, we're going to cover a couple of things here. His trickle-down economics, which has been described as the most enduring failed policy idea in American politics, and him pushing the narrative of the quote-unquote welfare queen, which is this idea of undeserving women who are freeloading off the American taxpayers. And it just kind of feeds into this bigger story of people who live in poverty just don't want to work.
And guess what kind of people they're talking about?
Yes.
They're saying
people of color.
The quite part, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with trickle-down economics. And forgive me, I am going to try to make this as interesting as possible. And I won't go too deep because, again, I'm not an economist. But when people talk about Reagan's economic policies, they talk about trickle-down economics. We'll put that in quotes. And Reaganomics, it's also more recently being referred to as supply-side economics. So you'll hear like Predator Trump. And, yes.
It might be
just needs a rebrand.
Lutz. I think it's a Frank Lutz thing. He's the guy that has the terrible wigs that goes on the news shows.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's always interviewing, like polling people. Like, I'm looking for women in their 20s who aren't working, that are undecided. And that asshole. He does that all the time.
So you'll hear like Predator Trump and noted weirdo JD Vance referring to it as supply side economics, but it's the same. It's the same thing because the GOP has a hard on for Reagan. They love him so much. So when Reagan took office in 1981, he really did inherit a shitty economy. Yeah. Like it was inflation. People were waiting in line for gas. Not good times.
No.
Unemployment was pretty high, et cetera, et cetera. And he had his economic goals were kind of centered around these few key points. It was reduced government spending, less regulation on businesses, and lower taxes. And he did lower taxes on the wealthy. So he didn't invent the idea of trickle-down economics.
No.
It's been around for over 100 years. It just wasn't called that most of the time. The first known use of trickle-down as an adjective
I'm
was
sorry, doesn't it
1940.
sound dirty when you say trickle down?
It's so dirty.
Just think of
A
Russian tea tape.
You should definitely take penicillin for your trickle-down
I'm
economics.
a child.
It was introduced in 1944, and then it was used again in like 1954. And Reagan really latched on to this theory when he was a governor, and the idea of giving tax cuts to the wealthy will, if you don't know what it is, means it'll trickle down and event to the middle class and lower income people, and it'll boost jobs and incomes for everybody. Like we're going to give big fat tax cuts to rich people.
Job creators, Sonia.
Yeah, job creators. And then the benefits of that will just piss down on us, if
They
you
will take that money they saved and give it to their employees, who will then spend it.
Yes.
But they don't do that.
Correct.
Right.
So
That's all I can understand,
yeah.
but I hope you're going to help me there.
Yeah. No, this is exactly what it is. It's not even more complicated than that. So he wins, he beats Jimmy Carter, he is elected in 1980, takes the office in 81, and he immediately does his first tax cut, which is the Economic Recovery Tax of 1981, and it cuts the tax rate 20% for like the wealthiest people in the world and 3% for the poorest. Mm-hmm. And then he does another one in 86, and that cuts it again, another 22% just for rich people. He doesn't even cut for anybody else. And Margot, do you think the money trickled down?
I'm going to guess no.
No, it did not. Surprise. Spoiler, it didn't. Mm-mm. So a study from the London School of Economics looked at 18 different countries that applied these kinds of policies, from Australia to the United States. They looked at a 50-year period from 1965 to 2015. This doesn't even include the fact that Trump did the same thing once he was elected in 2016. It only helped one group, the rich. Guess what? Yeah, the rich got richer, the poor stayed poor. Wild how that worked.
They hoarded.
Yes, they get these wealthy tax cuts, and then they hoard all the resources for themselves instead of investing in them in, like, say, wages. CEOs and other corporate executives captured 81% of the wage gains that followed these kinds of tax cuts.
Yep.
It actually significantly worsened racial inequality. The black and white wage gap had shrunk between 1950 and 1980, and then it like totally reversed in Reagan's time. So some of the things that happened during Reaganomics, Reagan cut Social Security, Medicaid, and food stamps totaling $22 billion. That's a lot of fucking money. They attempted to purge tens of thousands of disabled people from Social Security.
Fuck them.
Yeah. Because they alleged that, by the way, they alleged that they were not truly disabled. You know, people are just faking it to get Social Security. He cut funding for the Environmental Protection Agency.
Yep.
He vetoed a bill for the Clean Water Act. He also vetoed the Water Quality Act, because who needs clean water?
Right.
But Congress actually overrode that one because it turns out a lot of people like clean water. So
yeah,
and the reason he cut those things is he didn't want to pay for it. He doesn't want.
Right.
No, we need that money for rich people. So we have to cut that down. He cut funding to the Department of Education in half.
Wow.
In half. And then guess what? Test scores went down.
And that's what they're trying to get rid of the Department of Education with Project 2025.
Yes. If all of this sounds familiar, it's because it's the same fucking thing. The budget deficit, which, you know, again, I don't understand how all this stuff works, but it went from 74 billion in 1980 to 221 billion by 1990.
Shit.
Wages did not go up. They dropped in the 10-year span. So from 1980 to 1990, median wages did not increase. They dropped. And the number of Americans below the poverty level did not go down. In fact, the number of children went up 1 million. So there was 11.5 million children in poverty. And by the end of Reagan's term, it was 12.4 million.
Fucking prick.
I know, it's really fucked up. So because of his tax cuts to these social programs, and giving that money to wealthy people, we didn't invest in things like childcare, healthcare, family leave, higher educations. And because of that, they are the most expensive and least accessible in the world.
And we should say you're a working mom. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like you were saying in other episodes, you've talked about like when your son Calvin was born, you would have loved to have spent like a year at home bonding with him. And we have none of that here in America. It's like, was it 3 months? Is that all you had?
I had 3 months, but 6 weeks of that was covered, I think. And then there was some time where I was getting like half of my wages. And then I think there were a couple weeks where I wasn't getting any wages. And keep in mind, I was married at the time, so I had a second income around here. But
you live
was like,
you live in a coastal elite city. I mean, it's expensive. We're not rich, but
no, we're not. And like, yeah, I would have loved to have had that time, but I was back to work 3 months later, which by the way, everyone's like, whatever. But a lot of women in this country actually go back to work like 6 weeks later.
Yes.
And some even sooner than that.
Yeah.
And I don't think people talk enough about pregnancy really fucks up your body and your brain. Like your hormones are out of control. You've pushed something out of your fucking body that's like, it's bananas. Like I could have used more time just to like heal like my body after that.
When I was I worked at Condé Nast, and I'm going to spill some tea, but the editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine, Cindy Levy, came back to the office 2 or 3 weeks after giving birth.
Wow.
But she only worked from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So, and all the really young staff, 21, 22 years old, they were like, oh my God, she's such a hero. She's such a like that was the message. And it's like, she has a nanny. She's like, she's all these. Yeah. Also, it's Condé Nast is like, this is what we pay you for.
Yeah.
This is your.
Well, and I had to go back to work because that's how we were getting our healthcare benefits through my job.
God. Yeah. Right.
So I was working and paying someone to watch my kid just so I could have healthcare benefits.
Yeah.
It was almost like I wasn't making a profit to like invest in like rent or any of that stuff. No, my salary 100% was going to paying someone else to watch my baby so that we could have health insurance at the time.
Yeah.
It's bananas. We're the fucking worst here. We're the worst. So, in New Zealand, by the way, Damien O'Connor, he was a member of parliament in the Labour Party there. He used to refer to trickle-down economics as the rich pissing on the poor.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very accurate. Joe Biden has stated repeatedly that trickle-down economics never works. And even the fucking Pope hates trickle-down economics. Like saying that, and he said this in 2013, this opinion, which has never been confirmed by facts, expresses a crude and naive trust in the goodness of those wielding economic power. Which he's saying is, you're assuming that like rich people will be generous, and they're not.
Egalitarian.
Yes.
And that they'll spread the wealth.
Yes, which they don't. And here in America, because I know we have a lot of international listeners, we have a very vocal, like, Christian party. Like, they're just like, we're a Christian nation. We're not.
We're not.
By the way, we're not. It was kind of the whole reason people came here, actually, is because we weren't. But whatever. They want to pretend that they're super holy and that they're Christian and all that, but they're like against the things that actually like feed the poor or take care of children, or like they're against like even like free lunch program. You know, it's really, really fucked up. So let's wrap up the economic stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. So Reagan's policies, his like trickle down economics, like he cut all these things to like give his tax breaks to rich people. He also increased defense spending because he was like obsessed with Russia. So there was a massive increase in defense spending. This resulted in like large deficits. We had a huge trade deficit. And then we had a stock market crash that nobody seems to talk about anymore in 1987. And we had something called the savings and loans crisis, which, by the way, cost this country, let's see, $150 billion. Wow. That's how much it cost.
This is all in the 80s, right? This is like the high, where like Arnold Schwarzenegger and his documentaries, like everything was great. Everyone's making money and it's wonderful.
No, that's the thing. They all hold on to this idea that the 80s were great and we were all fucking rich. And that was not the case. The rich were rich.
Yeah.
And the poor stayed poor.
And this is what we're dealing with now in America, if you don't mind me interjecting, that this is like Trump is fighting and JD Vance are fighting to give tax cuts to the rich. And they think that's going to help inflation. When
this is why,
the grocery market CEOs are not bringing their prices down. Like COVID, there was an issue with, with getting products on the shelves. You couldn't even get toilet paper. You know what I mean? People were hoarding that stuff. But now that when things sort of leveled out, we had our vaccines, you would think the prices would go down, but they just kept them artificially higher, like 20%, 30%. And also they're all corporations, so they have to, they have a board. So they're always like, we need to make more and more money every year. So what do? You cut the cost. Where do we cut costs? People.
Yep.
And so you had 10 people on a team to do a thing. Now you have 2. And they have to do all that work, and then they're burnt out. It's so fucked up. But like,
that's why I wanted to talk about this, because what's happening right now, what Trump and JD Vance are pushing for is this. They want more of this.
Right.
They don't care who it hurts because it doesn't hurt them.
No, they want to take care of their billionaire friends that are paying all these bills.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I wrote in here, like if you're wondering if trickle-down economics, aka supply-side economics, doesn't work and it's so shitty, then why is the GOP so obsessed with it? And it's because for them, it's working.
Right.
For them, it's working.
For Peter
That's what
Thiel.
they care.
Thiel?
That's what. Yeah, Peter Thiel. We did a whole episode on him. It's working for them because they care about money for rich people, money for people who already have money.
Right.
That's what. So when they're like trickle down economics works, supply side economic works. Yeah, it works for them. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for. No, they don't care about you. Y'all, they don't care about you.
A healthy middle class is when America's at its best.
No, and they will say whatever they need to say.
They will go to donut shops and talk up people.
Yes. To get you to vote them in so that they can do this again.
Yeah.
So all of this brings me to welfare queens.
Please, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, this is the one that's a little bit more juicy, if you will, because the term welfare queen is actually based on a person, and she could probably be a whole episode herself. So in the fall of 1974, the Chicago Tribune does this whole story on this woman named Linda Taylor. Do you know? Have you heard of this person?
Yes.
Okay.
It was on the Dollop. They did a whole episode, but it turns out he got all his information from one article and never once mentioned it. The article.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. We don't do that here.
Yeah. That's why we make a big point of showing all of our sources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So she was in a trial, and they had labeled her the welfare queen. So in 1974,
African American, right? She's Black American.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but she could also pass. So
Right. She's very light skinned. Yeah.
Yes, she was very light skinned, and she actually like she could transform, like she with different hair and makeup and stuff. Like sometimes she pretended to be a lot of different races. So she had actually filed like false police reports claiming that she had been robbed of all these things. And then the police recognized her from like other reports, and they did all this investigating and like searched her house and all this stuff. And eventually it was discovered that like she was committing welfare fraud and like social security fraud and like all of this stuff. She was wanted in like multiple states. And eventually she was caught. It turned out she had gotten about $40,000 over a number of years doing these different like welfare, social security scams and stuff like that. And she also would like, she had like furs and like a Cadillac and like it was.
It's like Goodfellas.
Yes, like, and it was like, and she had a lot. She did a lot of criminal activity. Like she, on top of her like welfare fraud, like she also like there was like assault, theft, insurance fraud, bigamy, kidnapping, and like possibly even murder. And this man, Josh Levin, wrote a book about her. It's called The Queen. It looks like a pretty good read. And I honestly think it would be an amazing Netflix documentary.
I'm sure it's been optioned.
I watched like a 7-minute like interview that he gave talking about her. And I was like, this is fascinating. So that's we could probably do a whole episode just on her. But so Reagan reads this story, hears about it. He's running for president in 76 and then again in 80. And he uses the story of Linda Taylor to sell the example of like a broken welfare system. Like he uses her to paint the picture that a lot of people on welfare are like Linda Taylor. So here's a direct quote from one of his like famous speeches. He says, "There's a woman in Chicago who has 80 names, 30 addresses, 12 social security cards, and is collecting veterans benefits for 4 non-existing deceased husbands. She's got Medicaid, she's getting food stamps, and she's collecting welfare under each of her names. Her tax-free cash income alone is over $150,000. That's what he said in his speech.
Which is good money in 76.
It's good money, but it's also not true.
Because
again, she collected $40,000 over several years, but still a lot of money, but not as much as he's saying.
And somebody's always going to try somebody's always going to commit fraud. That's just, it's 100%. You're talking about human beings.
Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit too. So like he uses her as the jumping off point to tell more like general stories of women on welfare, and those women are always of color, by the way, who are having children out of wedlock, gasp, in order to get more welfare, using their welfare to buy drugs, and they have no desire to work. They're so lazy. This is his image of the welfare queen. Like he would give his speeches, he would refer to them, crowds would boo. It's very Trump, boo. And he would talk about like these families in inner cities that are living in like, and this is not a joke, luxurious public housing apartments. So luxurious. Everyone knows public housing's luxurious. He would talk about them like they have 6 bedrooms and 11 foot ceilings and a swimming pool and a gym, and they're just paying like 130. And I was like,
I call bullshit.
Dude's never been to public housing. Like that is not what's happening.
It's like when Bill O'Reilly used to, like, once a year he would do a whole thing about, you know what the poor are buying? Microwave ovens and toasters, and they have phones.
Yes.
And it's like, really? They can't have a Hot Pocket for lunch? Like,
Oh, no, it's so much fucking judgment. It's like
so much judgment.
You are allowed to spend your money the way I think you should spend your money.
Right.
Like, heaven forbid one time you use your welfare, your check to buy a steak or something. Then the people are like, how dare you? Like, have something good.
Just have rice every day and beans and cheese.
Yes,
that we give you.
Eat your rice-a-roni and your government cheese and be happy
and be
That's
grateful.
What you get. Yes. So he's such a piece of
Fucking
shit.
asshole.
So Reagan's bad takes on like welfare, it gave Americans a target, like a reason to be unsympathetic to the poor and the needy, and it worked. So in like 1978, they do a poll in Illinois, like when they're doing the primaries, and it found that 84% of people ranked controlling welfare and Medicaid fraud and abuses their highest priority. Keep in mind, terrible economy, inflation, gas lines, etc. And all of these people are like, I'm really worried about welfare fraud. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same shit that's happening now. Do you think it's really a big fucking deal which restroom trans people use?
No.
Do you think people in Ohio are really worried about the border? No. It's the same culture war bullshit that's trying to distract you from things about economics and money so that they can use that to like make the rich people richer, and the rest of us are like, I'm worried about tampons in boys' bathrooms. It's stupid.
And
it's so dumb.
Boys grow up with tampons in their bathrooms anyway, if they have a mom or a sister.
Wait till the government finds out about my gender neutral bathroom I have in my house.
I mean, but fear mongering does work. I mean, it's very effective.
Yes.
And especially if you only like check a few news sources and
Yes.
that you trust, it can give you a worldview that can be skewered. And
yes. Yeah. So his welfare queen story, by the way, again, all based off the one woman that she's
a hell of a woman.
Yeah, he's spun it into all these stereotypes.
Right.
Is used to make like some real life changes to welfare policy. So in 81, Reagan, he wins, he's in the White House, and he cuts like welfare programs, specifically aid to families with dependent children is one of the programs. And he allows states to institute work requirements.
So to
And
Clinton,
as I mentioned,
right?
Yeah. So we did a whole episode on Bill Clinton too.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned above, like Reagan cut Social Security, Medicaid, food stamps totaling $22 billion. All of this plus like cutting these welfare programs, it actually pushed more people into poverty. And because he had cut Medicaid funding, a lot of these people went without medical care. And then when they finally do get medical care, it's even more expensive because they weren't doing any of the
preventative things that you would find out with a yearly visit to a doctor.
And then puts them in like crazy medical debt. And then again, you're like pushing them. Like some of these people lose their homes and now they're homeless and they have their mental health issues that you covered in your episode. It all talk about trickle down.
Yeah.
Like this is what trickles down. So for decades, like politicians have been using these programs like food stamps, unemployment, Social Security, Section 8 housing, not as examples of like good things that we can do for people, but that people who use those things are lazy.
Right.
And they want free money, and they want free money from hardworking people like me.
Right.
Like, I'm paying so that they can be lazy. That's what it does. And they try to paint this picture that it's mainly people of color, when in fact, most of the people who are on welfare are white. But if you look at stories when they talk about programs like this, they will show you people of color. It's not white people, when a majority of the people
and they feature large people.
Yes,
To be also like, look at them.
They're lazy.
Right.
They're so lazy. So by the end of Reagan's presidency, 64% of Americans were worried that like welfare benefits were making poor people dependent on government handouts and encouraging them to stay poor. And so that like welfare queen story then moves into the 90s. And then Bill Clinton is also like, yeah, welfare queens. That's the thing that's totally happening. Don't pay attention to what's going on in my pants, everybody.
Yeah,
Look over
I was
here.
not happy when he spoke at the convention. I was kind of like, this one we could have passed.
No. So he does this whole thing where he's like, we're going to end welfare as we know it, quote unquote, in 1996. And he passes something called the Personal Responsibility Act.
That doesn't
What
sound
an asshole.
judgmental at all, does it?
No, what an asshole.
Fuck him.
And basically, like, this program, it institutes like work requirements and time limits and things like that. And like, it put a lot of mothers to work at low wage jobs that don't have healthcare benefits. If you wanted to get food aid, you had to show proof that you were working. It instituted like a 5-year lifetime limit on benefits, and it only funded sexual abstinence programs. So like,
Right. Don't have more babies.
no, don't have more babies, but that just means don't fuck. You don't fuck sluts. You sluts.
If you heard a banging, it wasn't from Sonia's cursing. It's my Facebook page is up, so it might be somebody responding to something. But
Yeah, instead of like, you know, like funding any kind of reproductive health, it was, why don't you try not sleeping around, you sluts?
keep your legs crossed, honey.
Yes. Ironic coming from Clinton.
Yeah.
So both Clinton and Reagan like created this welfare system that it expects the worst.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it paints the worst picture of the people that are getting assistance, and it just like continues to push the stereotype that poverty equals poor character. Like,
yes.
you're lazy, you're a bad person. Like, these were programs that were set up to help people, and
Especially
instead
after
it
the
turned
depression.
yes,
Yeah.
and they turned it into, you're a bad person, and that's why you're on these things. And they created policies that basically punished people, like as a response to something that wasn't really a problem in the first place.
Right.
So I read, and again, it's all in the show notes. 15 states like require applicants to take a drug test, even though there's no evidence that suggests that people on welfare are more likely to use drugs. So like in this instance, Missouri spends almost $350,000 a year to like drug test all of these people. 48 of them came back positive out of 40,000.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, that could mean they tested positive for cannabis.
Or an edible.
Yes, exactly. It could be anything.
And if it's on their downtime, who cares?
Like, also like Noted Liar and Super Creep, our second episode we ever did, Newt Gingrich, he infamously like went on like, you know, some rant about how a food stamp recipient like used her benefits to fly to Hawaii and all the shit. That never fucking happened.
Of course not.
It never happened, because if y'all know anything about the welfare system here in America, you like, it's very restricted. Like you can use these benefits to buy these specific kinds of food. And you can't even use the fucking hot bar at like Whole Foods or something.
No.
Like, no, absolutely not.
No, they have a big sign at the market, the outdoor market here in Brooklyn, and it's funny, like the stuff they have. And
and you can't they can't even buy diapers. Trust me, they're not buying a fucking ticket to Hawaii. Like it was just a lie, and then that lie spreads and people believe it, and then they're just like, "Did you hear about the woman who like driving around in a Cadillac and then she flew to Hawaii and she eats lobster and blah. Like it doesn't happen."
She's a
like,
genius if she made that happen. I want to
right?
read that story. I'm sorry, but we need to pick her brain.
If you're sensing my anger, everyone, it's because I get pissed. God damn it! So under Clinton using Reagan's welfare queen thing, and now it's Clinton's
appealing to
welfare.
Republicans.
Yes,
Because of his dick, he couldn't keep it in his pants, so fucked up his legacy.
Yep. 22 states passed laws that banned increasing welfare payments to mothers if they had more children. So it was the idea that like women are just having babies so that they can get more money. And like if they had more children and requested more money, they had to prove that it was the result of like their birth control failed or it was because of rape or incest.
And just
that's how
I can't. Sorry, I'm just not even going to say
no,
anything. It
it's
just
bullshit.
makes me so fucking mad.
Yes.
Because men are not asked any of these things.
No.
It's never asked, do you have condoms in your wallet? Right? Like they never, they don't like.
No. So a California state senator named Holly Mitchell was asked about these laws. And she said, I don't know a woman, and I don't think she exists, who would have a baby for the sole purpose of having another $130 a month. Like,
babies
it's true.
are a pain in the ass. Even if they're a lot of work.
Even when you love them.
Even when you love them, they're a lot of freaking work.
Yeah. So some of these states have repealed. Yeah. A lot. 7 of these states have repealed. So there's still, 15 that have these kinds of laws. Mm-hmm. Our current welfare policies are just shaped by the idea of punishing people that they think are undeserving. When really they're supposed to be there to support people through a time of need. And like but now it's more interested in like punishing people who they deem undeserving. And during Mitt Romney's like 2012 presidential campaign, he also talked about welfare queens. Like it was,
of course he did.
Of course he
that
did.
Prick.
He probably had fucking binders and binders of them. Fucking prick again. And he said that
strapped to the roof of his car along with the dog.
Yeah. Look, I know, and people are like, Mitt Romney's not that bad, and I was like, he's not that bad compared to Trump, but he still sucked. He still sucks. He's such a profile and courage, whatever. Eye roll. So he attacked President Barack Obama about like that Obama was more lenient on and this is a quote, on the quote unquote undeserving poor. And I'm kind of surprised, like I was reading all this in my research, and I was kind of surprised that this wasn't made a bigger deal than it was. And it's not something that people still talk about, because he's saying the quiet part out loud when he says like who's deserving, right?
Right.
Like so when it comes, and this is their whole thing, and like Trump is still like this, and Vance and all these dickheads. Like when it comes to government financial support, conservative politicians will always be like, well, who's going to pay for it? But the real question is, who deserves our support? That's what they're saying. Who's worthy? Who's worthy of government support? And in their cases, it's rich people. Rich people are deserving. They
don't
get
give
handouts
any of it away. Who don't help anybody. Yeah.
This is how I tie it right back up.
Thank you.
To trickle-down economics. That is basically a government handout. They're giving. And they are worthy, but working people are not worthy.
A single mom in Georgia, trying
not worthy.
Yeah.
No. Rich people are worthy. You are not worthy. You are lazy pieces of shit. Get off your ass and work for the king, dickheads. That's what they think. And like I saw in here that like, so 2/3 of all Americans at some point will use welfare for at least 6 months. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of fucking people.
Does that include unemployment?
It specifically says welfare.
Okay.
So,
because I've been on unemployment like during COVID, like a lot of people.
Yeah, I've been on unemployment.
I mean, a couple of times, like the one time I've been on a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need it sometimes. Yeah. But you invest in it with your taxes. Hello.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So this is why the story pisses me off, because when they're they're punishing people for shit that's not a real problem. Like I know that there is welfare fraud. I know it exists.
Of course, there's fraud for everything.
Yes. But and because of that, we have to make it hard for everyone and shameful for everyone because a few bad apples, and it's like, I'm sorry that we have to be shitty about welfare, but because a few people might abuse it, but we're not going to do anything about guns. Mm-hmm. And the leading cause of death of children in this country, because I'm sorry, a few bad apples doesn't ruin that bunch, right. Apparently. Or millionaires and billionaires take advantage of the tax cuts, but also we can't let those few bad apples ruin the bunch. It's like, again, rich people and corporations are worthy, and people who actually need it are not worthy. So that is our creep, Ronald Reagan, and I guess you could throw Clinton in there, but the idea of trickle-down economics and welfare queens.
Good job, Sonia. And also J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are promoting these economic policies. Yes. They want them back. They think they work.
Yes. Yeah.
And they think we're stupid because we keep... And Clinton did mention this at the DNC. The economy's better when a Democrat's in charge for the last 30 years. Yeah.
And again, they're saying it works because for them it does work. It helps the people that they want to help.
Well, it helps Elon Musk. I tell people, my parents lived in near Reno, Nevada, and I've told you this before, but Apple has, when you get an Apple product, they say they're in Silicon Valley, they're in Palo Alto. But Apple says that their corporate headquarters are in Reno, Nevada. And there's 11 people that work there because that's the minimum you have to have. And that way they don't have to pay local taxes. So all those people that work for Apple in the Bay Area, in the South Bay specifically, they're not paying for the roads. They're not paying for, firemen and all that stuff. Like they don't contribute to that. But they get all that talent from the area, and their employee. It's so fucked up. It's not that hard to do the right thing.
And Musk does the same thing. He's like moving people to. He's opened up like a headquarters, quote unquote, in Texas for his businesses, so he doesn't have to pay.
And he has government contracts, and he's considered a defense contract because he has that SpaceX bullshit. That that he gets money from.
So again, when you hear like Trump and Vance and all these people running for Congress and running, and they're talking about supply side economics, and it does work and stuff like that. It does for rich people. It works for rich people. That's all you need to remember. Like if they're trying to sell you on the idea that it works, it's because it's working in the way that they want it to work.
And we're talking the billionaires, which is like...
it's making rich people richer. It's not making poor people richer. And
it's eroding the middle class.
Yes, you are not going to benefit from that. But they are going to tell you that you are. You are not going to benefit from that. So like, don't let these assholes lie to you.
Right.
Don't vote against your own interests, people, please. Like, ugh. So I know part 3 on Reagan. I told you before we started recording, we could do whole episodes about the savings crisis, the Iran-Contra affair, the air traffic controller strike. Like Reagan is an all-timer creep, and the GOP holds him up as a god.
And Nancy Reagan is a real turd.
She sucks too.
Yeah, we've mentioned some of her suckiness, but we might have to do more of that because I'm in the wrong page, Sonia.
I need to like get off my Reagan train. I'm gonna try to pick someone else. I'm getting too deep into Reagan shit.
Well, I posted in our Facebook group. It's a trailer for Dennis Quaid's movie Reagan, and listed as the worst movie of the year by the Daily Beast. So it sounds pretty fucking terrible. So I want to thank Christy Aaron Titus. She gave us our suggestion this week for the Not a Creep. And she couldn't find the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters. So she has a GIF. That's
fine.
It's fine. So it's Tippi Hedren is our non-creep. She's an actor that now does, she still acts, and she's still with us, 94. But she does wonderful things with animals. So I want to talk a bit about Tippi Hedren. We mentioned her when we talked about Alfred Hitchcock, which might be on our Patreon wall because it was a while ago that we talked about him. Her name is Natalie K. Hedren. She was born January 19th, 1930. She's from Minnesota.
Don't you know?
Don't you know? That's my terrible Minnesota accent. But she's... she started as a model. She in New York City. She married an actor, and then she had Melanie Griffith, and then she and her husband split up, and then she was in a commercial, and Alfred Hitchcock saw her, and he had a thing for blondes, and he picked her to star in The Birds, and he treated her like hot garbage in that movie.
So awful.
There's a scene in The Birds, spoiling The Birds, but she opens up a door, and there's these birds that are taking over a town, and they're attacking people, and the birds are in this bathroom, they're in the attic, and they're coming through the roof, and they really put Tippy through a week solid. She was in that room, and they just threw live birds at her that pecked at her face and her hair. I mean, she still is dealing with that trauma. Yeah,
I watched that movie recently. It's
tough to watch.
It's tough to watch. It's a good movie. It's weird. Yeah. It's actually surprisingly weird.
He was,
but she's really good in it, and I don't know. I like Alfred Hitchcock movies, but he is a creep.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite movies. It's one of my favorite horror movies, for sure.
Yeah.
And I love Hitchcock, but yeah, he was a real prick. I have that gif of, it's the person who plays Mitch's mother. I'm like blanking on her name. Is that Jessica Tandy? She plays his mother, and when she carries the cake at the party, like that's what I send my friends on their birthday. It just cracks me up. Like in the middle of this horror movie, they have a kid's birthday party. And the kids get attacked by birds, by the way. So it's a tough film. Anyway, she has always loved animals, and she got really into animal rescue in the late 60s. She was shooting a couple of films in Africa, and this is where she kind of fell in love with the wildlife there. So she and her second husband, Noel Marshall, had a bunch of lions and tigers on their property, on their house, yes, in Southern California. And they actually made a movie called Roar.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Which I've never seen. They have it every once in a while. They have it at Alamo Drafthouse, and it sells out so quickly. But it was basically, there were all these lions and tigers, mostly lions, living at her house. And they just started filming there, and then Melanie was in this movie, and she's a teenager. Everybody got mauled. Everybody got messed up. Like everybody, it's wild. But she wasn't doing it to hurt these animals. She did it because she truly loved these animals, and she wanted to give them, like I spoil my pets. You want to make them feel. You want them to know that they're loved and they're wanted, and you want to, support their. But I wouldn't advise it myself.
No.
Just saying
I don't love the idea of getting a pet that wants to eat my face. Pass.
But I do love if I'm killed by a lion, I'm okay. Just so you know. Like, ultimately. That would be...
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. I just like, well, we should really love them. So she became really interested in... she created an animal preserve. It's called Shambhala Preserve, and it's a nonprofit, and it's at the edge of the Mojave Desert in Acton, California, and she has just tons of animals there, and 70 animals. You can go on tours. The person that she rescues lions, tigers, etc. from roadside zoos. And that, so there are people like we saw what was not called the Lion King. It was the Tiger King.
Oh, the Tiger King.
Right. There are.
I didn't watch it because you warned me that
it's pretty tough.
Some of the animal stuff might really upset me. So I took a hard pass on that one. And I'm also passing on Chimp Crazy.
I'm not going to do Chimp Crazy. And I couldn't do the Arnold from... it's from, I'm sorry, it's Gary Goldman? Gary
Coleman.
Coleman, excuse me, sorry. There's a documentary about him on Hulu, and I started watching it, and I'm like, this is going to bum me out, isn't it? Like, I was looking for something more uplifting. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that's the one for you then.
No. There have always been zoos in America, around the world, and with in the 40s and 50s, when they started building these super highways around the country, which is like what they have in Europe, they started creating here, the Autobahn in Europe. What we have here in America is they created all these freeways and highways. So people started driving more for vacations. And if you're driving, like me growing up, you're like 6 hours in a car, you're ready to kill each other. You know, you look for your roadside attractions. And so people like had circuses and they had their own theme parks, and there are people who have zoos or they have their own attractions. And there are people that, and this is what upsets me, is they get lions and tigers and bears and anything.
Yeah.
Snakes, you know, all kinds of stuff. And they're like, come here, pet a snake. Come here, pet a lion. Yeah. And it's horrible.
But they
to
don't treat them well.
They don't treat them well. And they're drugged up. I mean, these to keep them docile. Yeah. And it's just like a total horrible life. So they've created this place. So they rescue these animals from these zoos. And you can go and visit, but you can't pet the animals. Like it's done from a distance. So the animals are taken care of. And Christy said that, side note, Linda Gray from Dallas was on my tour. I'm a Gen Xer, so this was amazing. And I was like, Linda Gray like, oh, Mike Sue Ellen from Dallas. Like,
yes.
Hello.
Right.
And then her friend, Jennifer Horn Cottingham, said, I'd like to add Christy as quite a non-creep herself, teaching full-time and doing animal rehab and volunteer work too. For Christy's Caring Hands Wildlife Rehabilitation Education. So if you join our Facebook group, you can like her page. And so Tippy is alive and well, and she still loves animals. And she's filming with Don Johnson, a movie he just posted the other day. Really? I saw it in People Magazine. Yeah. They're very close. He and Melanie are the parents of Dakota.
Oh, right. Yes.
So anyway, she still acts like she's been acting this whole time. She was in Cougar Town, Raising Hope. She's done voice work, but she's really, really, really about animals. That's her love and her passion. And
I love that.
And 94. And she's still doing it, man. She's still living, and she's still beautiful, and she's kind and amazing, and she's outlived Hitchcock. Hitch. Fuck that guy. I mean, great
Seriously.
filmmaker, but y'all, he was a piece of work. Ugh. So that's our non-creep, Tippy Hedren.
Good pick.
All right.
Facebook group, and good job, Margot.
Thank you. If you like the sound of our voices, and by golly, why wouldn't you? We co-host a show called Dorking Out, where Sonia and I dork out about movies usually in the past. Sometimes we do a present movie, but what are we talking about next, Sonia?
We are talking about Josie and the Pussycats from 2001. This has been a request multiple times. I'm excited for Margot to watch this. She's never seen it.
It's a first time for me.
I saw it in the theater, and then I've, probably rented it after that. And I just think it's really, really fun. And I'll be very shocked if Margot doesn't like it, but I think it's a good one. So do that. Our episode out right now is Desperately Seeking Susan, which was another one that was also super fun. So yeah, check us out there.
People gave me a hard time because I told my story about seeing Madonna at Radio City Music Hall in 1985, and I only went to see the Beastie Boys that opened up for them, and then I wanted to leave. I was a dumb kid.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I was a dumb kid. Well, as we mentioned, we're always looking for suggestions, so please send it to us. All those social media places I mentioned at the top of the show. We love when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters.
If you could find it.
If you can't, use the Tippy Hedren from whatever, from the Birds. But or email once again, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you would like some stickers, that's a great place to reach out to us. Please join our Patreon if you want to, and you want to help out the show, that'd be great. Or just subscribe, leave stars. Just tell a friend about the show, y'all. Share it on social media, just whatever. That would be amazing. Be good, be kind. It's Labor Day weekend. Support your workers, support your unions.
Yes. Be safe out